What's going on, traders? It's Ricky with TechBot Solutions. Thank you guys again for joining us for another live stream. If you guys are joining us for the first time, this is TechBot Solutions. We go live every single day, Monday through Friday, and pretty much all I do is I answer a couple questions. I share my whole thought process when it comes to identifying potential and what stocks I'm personally going to be trading. And I want to make sure I lead by example and you guys understand three things. You never trade based on anyone else's opinion. You never trade penny stocks or anything that you don't understand. And then you always have to plan out your trades. You need to know where you buy, sell, and then cut losses. Just touching a little base on that, I'm going to start sharing my screen so you guys can see exactly what it is that I'm going to be talking about and looking at today. So I'm going to be using the TD Ameritrade Thinkorswim platform. It's just a platform that I'm comfortable with and that I always use. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Let's go ahead and go. Thank you guys again for all those that are tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Let's go ahead and start seeing what we can find. So I have JNUG right away. Something that I've noticed about JNUG within the past couple of days is that during pre-market hours, a majority of the time, sometimes it tries to pick up, and then right before the market opens, it sees a drop, as it saw yesterday, and then the day before it was kind of flatlined. So today during pre-market hours, as you guys can see right here, hit highs of about 1660, and it's most likely going to try to bounce at around 1620 to 1615 based on the previous support that I had here. So what I'm going to be looking at is I'm going to be waiting for the bounce. Right as the market opens, there's usually form of overselling or something like that. So it looks like it's already having a sell-off. So 610, it's dropping pretty quickly. It is at a pretty low point compared to where it has or it stands within the past 20 days. But oh my goodness, back at 16. Let's see. It's trying to hold above 16 if you guys can see. All right, broke below 16. So we're gonna have to wait for the bounce. So what I mean by that is once it starts seeing an upward trend, I'm gonna wait maybe until it goes above 16 because since it just dropped below 16, that might become a new resistance. But because this one is doing so badly today, JDST must be our pick today. And what I mean by that is one. JNUG does well, JDST does bad. When JNUG does bad, JDST does good. So I made a video yesterday, kind of a little bit more in detail. So I said how to profit on JNUG and JDST, and why I always trade these two certain ETFs. And I kind of just talk about. I actually did talk about once JDST breaks above 74, that tends to be a pretty solid resistance. But if it does break above it, then it has this margin. Let's see if I could actually pop it up. Nope, within the past 20 days, it hasn't even broken above that, but it does have this margin. I'm gonna zoom in here. Once it breaks above 74, it has this margin from about 74 to about 85. So if it continues going the way that it's doing, that's about 11% profit. So that's pretty solid that it is trying to break above 74, but it looks like it's experiencing a pullback. And then JNUG is still not bouncing. So we might have to focus a little bit more on JDST, or I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on JDST compared to JNUG, but we'll follow up with that one. Let's do AMD. AMD is hitting a resistance that it had all day yesterday, and that was, if you guys saw, it was struggling to break above $13.30, meaning that every time it would come up, it did break above it once, but realistically, I mean, wasn't holding above 13.30. So it saw a pullback, continued to bounce, tried to bounce or break above it, didn't do it. Has a support at about $13. So if you guys can see that it started to try to hold above $13, and then now it's approaching the same resistance at 13.30. So how can we approach this position on AMD? Well, based on the previous trends, it most likely, there's one of two things that I like to do in this certain position. Is right now it's more on the overbought side where it currently stands. So this RSI indicator, it's indicating that it's more on the overbought side, meaning that it's, it's just not necessarily such a good buy at this specific price point. But if it breaks above 13.30, if we take a step back, if it breaks above 1330, then that can be, you know, a deal breaker where it breaks the resistance and then it starts trending back up to, you know, this 1450 mark. So then that can be a good indicator when it does break above 1330 that maybe a position that you guys, or a position that I might want to take is once it breaks above 1330, identify that as the new support, because once it breaks above that resistance, it becomes a new support, and then see if I can trade it all the way up to 1450. But if it doesn't break above 1330, then it would most likely start seeing a downward trend just like it did all day yesterday. And if it starts to hold just like it did yesterday and during aftermarket hours, the same as it would today, then I can see catching it at the bounce at about 1305 or 1310, trying to sell at about 1313 or 1330, which is about 1.59% profit. So that might not actually be, you know, 100% worth your time. All I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to create an alert, and I just want to be alerted if it breaks 1330, and I also want to be alerted if it breaks below $13, if it breaks that support. I just want to be up to date. So it looks like it might be experiencing a slight pullback. No, not really. It's not really doing much right now. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Let's see. Did I? Yeah. All right, sweet. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to JLBS. Why is this one doing so well? Wow, that's a pretty nice gapper. Okay, so resistance here at 182. It's experiencing somewhat of a pullback, but not much. It's trying to kind of, you guys can see here. So it's gapping up from 122 all the way up to 180, but it's almost starting to flatline. It's going to start to like cup up and come back up to this 180 resistance. So there's this margin of, if we identify, if we try to wait until it breaks above 160 to 180, that's 11% profit. And once it breaks above 160, you can identify that as a support. So, I mean, we would have to wait for the bounce. But doing that, then we can cut losses if it breaks below 160, meaning that it's a little bit easier to manage your risk, even with this momentum stock. It just comes down to, you know, a simple understanding that the reason I say 160 is because it looks like it's trying to hold above 160, although it did drop below it. It's still trying to hold above 160 with that support, and 160 was the previous resistance. So if you guys can see here, it was struggling to break above 160, but then it eventually did, and like we know, once it breaks above it, it becomes a new support. If it breaks below that, then it most likely will start trying to trend down to 150, and then if not, down to, you know, 130. But I'm gonna I think we should follow up with this one, JLBS. This one definitely does have very low volume, so that's not something that we might want. But based on how it currently looks during pre-market hours, it has way more volume, even pre-market hours, than it usually does. So that's a good sign. Not too sure if you guys remember DGAS. I called this one out when it was at $23. I actually called it out, I think, when it was at $17. So let me take a step back. And we called it out back here when it was at $17, just because of just looking at 180-day analysis, I saw that it was at a pretty low point, a pretty low support based on these previous two bounces. And then when it ended up bouncing, I actually just thought it was going to go to like 23, but then it broke that resistance, and then it started trading kind of within this margin of like 23 to about 30. So now it's on its way back down. So if we want to focus on this margin that it has from about 23 to 30, it's on its way back down. There's most likely going to be little indicators like 26 and 24 where it's going to try to hold above, but realistically, it's most likely going to try to bounce again here around 23. And if it does start seeing an upward trend, then maybe we can ride it back up. So I'm simply going to set my alerts just to stay up to date with the movement of DGAS. And I'm going to put when it goes below 26, and I'm going to put when it goes a little bit higher right here, when it goes below 25. Actually, not 25. I don't know when it goes below 24. Okay. Rad just has been on a consistent downward trend. This is Rite which supposedly is a really good company, or just a very well-known company. I guess really good isn't necessarily the case for this one. But it had a huge drop after one of its earning calls, and it's just been on a consistent downward trend. If you can see within the past couple of days, if not almost a year, just is not showing what it's not showing a good sign for a stock that you should want to invest in. And what I mean by that is a lot of people are like, oh man, look how low the price is right now. Right now is the time to buy. Maybe if you knew something about the company that it would suggest that it's going to start moving back up or appreciate in value. But realistically, if you're just going based off trends, which is something that we really try to focus on, it's been consistently showing signs of downward momentum, meaning that why would you appreciate or why would you invest money in something that is depreciating in value and very drastically within the past couple of days? Therefore, I'd much rather take a step back. I can simply set an alert, and if it starts to cut back up and it breaks above, $3, it starts to actually bounce and break above $3, then I have this whole margin of profit to capitalize on. But realistically, it's just been continuously just dropping, and that's not necessarily something that I want to put my money in, that I've worked very hard for. So just like you guys, regardless if you're investing $100 or $100,000, you guys are working hard for your money. You guys want to make sure that you guys understand what you're investing in, being able to manage your risk and choose the best investment. So I always have some criteria on maybe investing in something that only shows like signs of upward momentum, certain volume, or just a certain indicator like RSI indicator or MACD, whatever it is that you guys use to indicate a good buy. That doesn't look very good. Let's get a little bit closer again. It looks like it's starting to flatline, which is pretty cool. So I'm not too sure if this is going to be the lowest point. Something that JNUG does very well within the past couple of days is make these like false little supports, and then it continues to drop. So I want to make sure that it's not like a false, like fake support, and then right when the market opens it starts to drop. But if we see that it dramatically starts to increase in price right as the market opens, maybe I can buy in at around $16, and then based on this previous resistance that it had during pre-market hours, which again, just going based off previous trends within a day. Sometimes people ask me, how do I identify potential for a day trade? Well, I can simply go back maybe 1 to 2 days and see realistically what margins it has to make up. So is it realistic for me to go back 20 days and say, well, right now it's at $15.85. It's going to go all the way back up to $20 all in one day. So that's going to be my day trade. I have, potential for profit of about 20%. Realistically, no. If that took about 20 days, then it's most likely going to take 20 days to get there. And that's what I use, to be as realistic as I can. I tried to just use real data based on let's say maybe the past 2 days, that if it took 2 days to drop down here, within 2 days if it starts to pick back up, then it can make its way back here. So now if I want to day trade it, I know that there's this resistance during pre-market hours, which was just a couple minutes ago, at 1660, and right now it's down at 1585. So I'm catching at a low point, and if you guys can see right here, my RSI indicator is showing that it's more on the oversold side. I would most likely like to wait for the bounce, meaning that it starts to trend back up. So I'm going to set my alert when it breaks above $16. And people might be asking, well, why is it that I'm going to let it, make 15 cents on the name until I, buy? Well, I want to make sure that I'm, again, investing in something that is seeing signs of upward momentum rather than continuously, seen a downward trend. So it's not, for me, it's not about getting it at the lowest price, but it's actually invest in something that is appreciating in value. Therefore, if I buy in at 16, from 16 to 1660, from top to bottom, what I realistically think I can lock in a profit within one day is about 3.59% realistically from top to bottom. Again, like we've done numerous times with the $1,000 challenge, and kind of just talking a little bit more about, people just talk about like long-term growth and how it is that you can achieve that, especially when starting out. What I would suggest is if you're up 2 to 3%, have a stop loss. There's nothing wrong with seeing if any more profit, if you guys can squeeze in a little bit more profit. But realistically, you guys should always have a plan. If you guys are exceeding 2 to 3% profit on a trade every single day, that's huge. And I want you guys to understand that 2 to 3% profit on average, let's say just like 2.34 from $1,000, if you can lock in that profit of 2.34 profit, from $1,000 to $20,000, you only need to day trade 3 times out of the week with that average profit, and you will convert $1,000 to $20,000. I believe it was $3,000 to like $120,000. It's realistically, like unrealistic or just crazy how powerful the power of compounding interest is. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. So if anything, I actually made an Excel sheet within the TechBud Solutions platform. Feel free to download it. It's called the Growth Plan, or the one, just search under the search bar, the Growth Plan. It's one that I actually shared. Download the file. I've talked about it numerous times, and it will actually tell you with the account that you have, how consistent you have to be with locking in your profits and how many days, and then it'll give you a projection for the year. If you stay consistent, if you keep losses small and you lock in consistent profit, like the growth is, like, the numbers make sense, but it comes down to people getting emotional, people getting too greedy, people, not wanting to lock in profits. Always have a plan, and when you're up, just always have a plan on, stop putting your stop loss. So if you guys are up like 2 to 3%, so like, let me just, I know you guys don't even like looking at me, let's be honest. So right now it looks like JNUG, if you guys could see, it's starting to show finally some green candlesticks, and hopefully starting to pick back up. So if you guys could see that, what I want to see is for it to break above $16. And once it starts breaking above $16, then I can make the decision to buy in around 16 and sell at around, realistically, I think like 640 would be ideally the point to sell, from 640 to about 1660. So that's my margin. So what I can do is, although it does have margin to make up to 1660, what I'm going to do is, once it starts picking up and once it breaks above 640, because I already have from $16 to 1640, this 2.5% margin of profit. Once it breaks above 1640, I'm going to put my stop loss here. Therefore, if all of a sudden JNUG takes a dip, I at least, lock in my profits from 16 to 1640. But I at least give it that cushion that if it does start to pick up, then I can, at least give it that margin. And then once it hits 1660 or gets close to that, I can put my limit order and then lock in that profit. So it's all about taking precaution. For me, I'm more of a conservative trader, so if what I'm talking about doesn't make sense to you guys, 100%, you guys, do what it is that makes the most sense for you. I'm just saying that I think consistently locking in 2 to 3% profit, and if you're day trading 2 to 3 times a week, then you can, in a sense, see this type of growth, about 28% growth a month, and it's just huge. But if you guys have over $25,000 and can day trade more than 1 time a day, then just imagine locking in 2.3% profit. Every single time you trade, 3 times, which is usually what I average, 3 times a day, it comes around like 7%, which is, again, also huge. It really comes down to just being consistent, keeping losses small, and understanding that there's nothing wrong with locking in small profits. It's always better than locking in, 2 to 3% profit, rather than having to cut losses at 5 to 10% because you were being greedy or you're hoping for the best. So that's all I could really share with you guys. I hope that makes sense to you. But let's go ahead and let me try to find one more stock. It's on the FB search bar. So you go here, or you can go under files, or you can go here, but it's called the growth plan. So when you search up the growth plan, it's going to be a file. And people sometimes have, in a sense, just modified it and created like a little bit of possibly a better way. But if you can't find it that way, go to files. And then there's the PVP checklist, which is a file that I created. And then there's it's this growth plan, but make sure that it's from me. If you guys want the one that I made exactly, which is right here. So you guys can download it. Again, you guys can just go under files, and then there's a search bar. So a lot of people sometimes ask certain questions. Be sure before you ask your questions, because we're gonna be a little bit more, I don't want to say strict with approving posts, but we've been getting a bunch of the same questions. So all I suggest is, before you guys ask your question, use this search bar for key terms of your specific question to make sure that that question hasn't been answered before. I mean, make sure you guys are doing your own homework and not just being lazy and trying to get everyone to answer your question, right? There's nothing wrong with answering or asking a specific question, but if it's a general question that you think Google or, the thousands of members that have posted within TechBud Solutions can answer, then please just, just take time, 1 minute, and search for a place if you guys can. All right. What's going on, bud? What's going on, bud? What's up, Nick? So can you talk about the 3 point? Okay. Well, the ROS looks like it's having more consistent trends. So support at about $1.05. It looks like realistically the resistance is at about 120, but it's not even hitting that high anymore. It was trying to hold above 110, so it almost looks like it's starting to bounce. If it starts to bounce, just know that there is this slight margin of profit, which is pretty big for a $1 stock. So again, it all comes down to having a plan and what makes sense to you. Understanding that 110 was a previous resistance, so as you guys can see here, it didn't break above 110. Again, like we know, old resistance become new supports. So realistically, do I think it could bounce at 110? Yeah. I personally don't like DRYs. I think it shows a lot of signs of manipulation and downward momentum within the past, just ever of this specific stock. But does that mean that you guys can't day trade it if you guys see potential? Trade in what you see value in, and if you think you can get in and out and lock in, 3 to 8% profit from top to bottom, then go for it. But just again, make sure that you have a plan, manage your risk. And it's bouncing. So this is what I like to see. There might be a slight resistance at 115 though. So don't get too afraid of this. I mean, all this means is that there's like sellers here at 114, but there's this gap. There's only buyers here at 111. So if anything, I would still send my limit order at 111. And the reason why is if I can manage my risk by getting filled at 111, I know the support is at 110. I have this slight risk of about 1% or less than 1%, about 0.84% if I stop loss out if it goes below 110. But I have this margin of profit from here to even 116, which is a slight resistance of about 4%. So it all comes down on how you do it. Just make sure that you guys understand level 2 and how to read it. If you guys don't know how to read that, I do have a series of helpful videos within our YouTube channel, and I have made numerous videos. You guys can always search up if you guys are trying to like level 2, and then just put Ricky, and I should be popping up. Yeah, you guys can okay, not that guy, but yeah, you guys can search my name and then search whatever it is that you guys are trying to do, and I most likely have made a video on it. So if this thing is bouncing, there's now buyers here at 112. Don't get too hyped up on that because doesn't look like their size or their position is big anyways. But yeah, good call on DRYS. That's a pretty solid bounce. Yeah, so I really like JNUG now because JNUG is starting a flatline, if you guys could see that. And all we need is the volume for when the market opens. If it starts to indicate that it's going to start moving up, then it's all about having a plan. And I understand that it bounced here at lows of 1580. So if I get filled at $16 and I stop loss out if it goes below that, that's about 1% 1% margin for loss. And if I go from 16 to 1640, or 40, it's about 2.5%. So again, my potential for profit is much greater than my potential for loss, or at least more than twice as much. Therefore, for me, JNUG, it's one that I've been going to pretty often. But if it doesn't make sense to you guys, please, like I always say, never invest in what you don't understand. And that's really just it. If you guys need a little bit more time to learn how to identify potential, then make sure you guys dedicate that time and just don't go investing money. If you guys want to get your feet wet and don't want to risk any real money, there's a thing by TD Ameritrade. It's called paper trading. So you guys can sign up for that. It's free, and it allows you to trade real-time stocks like this, and they give you $200,000 of fake money. And you can gain your experience that way, and you can start growing your account for the meanwhile. But plug, if you guys know anything about this one, again, if it doesn't make sense to you 100%, don't go for it. It's had a previous support here at about 195, and it just hit during pre-market hours the lows of 195. So what I'm thinking this is indicating is that it's slowly going to start coming down to 195. And based on this 20-day analysis, if you guys could see this, the potential for profit at 195, if I buy in at 195, even if I wait till it breaks above $2, that potential for loss, I wouldn't wait that high. I would wait probably to 196, 197 to buy in, and then I would cut losses if it breaks below 195. But to be able to sell at 210, the potential for profit is about 5%, when the potential for loss is 1%. So it's just at a pretty low point based on where it stands within the past 20 days. Does it mean that it's going to hold above 195, 100%? No way, right? It has gone below, and it is kind of on this margin of it usually is down here. So if it breaks below 195, then just know that it's most likely going to start seeing a downward trend, and you might want to manage your risk and cut losses. But I'm going to set my alerts on this one just because it's one that I've actually traded before when it was at $2. I just waited for it to break above 2, and then I started to trade it. So I actually have my alert, if you guys can see here, placed when it goes below $2. So that will most likely go off. I'm going to put my alert if it goes above this. And ooh, I forgot to tell you guys. All right. So I want to thank each and every one of you guys for tuning in and for everything it is that you guys do. I just want to ask you one thing, and we are going to be launching our beta trials for TechBud Solutions. It's going to be free. People were asking me, like, what's the platform going to do? Are you going to have to start paying for it? Because we're taking the group chats and the Facebook platform that we have that are all currently free, and we're moving it to our own website. People were asking, just because we're implementing features that are going to make it that much more efficient and effective for people to network, is it going to cost money? No, it's still going to be free, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, but we're going to have beta trials, and once I have 100% heard from my developers that it is good to go, I'll be sure to shout it out for you guys specifically, especially for those that are within TechBud Solutions only, and then I'll make a video for YouTube. But the link is down in the description if you guys aren't a part of the TechBud Solutions Facebook platform. So feel free to join. Again, you just have to have a Facebook account. Now, once you get accepted on the top pinned post, there's a series of group chats. Those are the ones that we have access to network with over 29,000 now members worldwide. So I can't thank you guys enough for everything it is that you guys do. I've market just open. So if anything, I'm probably going to be trading JNUG, but I have an extremely busy day. So I'm actually going to cut the live stream here. So remember, continue networking, continue doing the best it is that you guys can do. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. And like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take care, guys. If you guys didn't watch yesterday's video, be sure to check it out.